Today, we're diving into a thought-provoking paper by S.C. Sayles titled Marriage Before Law, Sex, Covenant, and Moral Reality. Man, I've got to say, just from the title alone, you know this one is going to spark some debates. So, let's start with the core question. What's this paper trying to figure out? Well, Sayles is challenging how, in our time, people often see marriage as basically just a legal contract or, an arrangement based on feelings, something the law creates, maybe with a ceremony and some vows, a bit of emotion, but mostly a matter of paperwork. But the paper asks, wait, what if marriage is not just a legal thing? What if before any government or court ever existed, marriage was something real, a moral reality woven into the fabric of human life? That's a bold claim. Sayles says that marriage begins not with law, but with sexual union and a covenant between two people. And the law isn't creating marriage. It's recognizing something deeper, something that's already there. That's a pretty huge deal. Because if you accept that, it means marriage isn't just about paperwork or ceremonies, but about tangible bonds people form, regardless of what a court or piece of legislation says. So, yeah, big implications, right? Alright, but how does Sayles get to these ideas? The paper walks through a mix of theology, philosophy, and history. Sayles starts with a dive into Genesis, Adam and Eve, that one flesh language. It's treated as an ontological statement, a claim about what is. So in this reading, marriage comes from sexual union and a mutual promise, long before property law or government. Then the paper loops in Jesus' own appeal to that creation story, arguing that even Christ points to creation, not civil procedure, as the source of marriage. A huge point Sayles makes is that sex isn't just expressive, not just about showing love or feelings, but actually constitutive. In other words, sex makes something real, whether people intend that or not. You get these examples from the Bible, like 1 Corinthians, or stories where marriage is formed even in less than ideal ways, like Jacob with Leah and Rachel. According to Sayles, sexual union creates obligation, a real binding, even, and this is wild, even when there's trickery or lack of full consent in those ancient narratives, you still see enduring consequences. The linguistic side is pretty interesting too. In Hebrew and Greek, the words for husband and wife are tied to man and woman. Sayles argues this supports the idea that marriage is rooted in sex difference, not just, abstract roles people take on. Historically, he claims marriage was viewed as something society recognized but didn't invent or define, and that only more recently, in, say, early modern Europe, did law try to take over, making marriage all about procedure. Suddenly, sex gets cast as recreational, and marriage gets stuck with the legal trappings. The upshot? Well, Sayles says that seeing marriage as a pre-legal ontological reality shines light on a bunch of tricky debates. Divorce, who counts as married, what's up with polygyny, and even what the government shouldn't be doing. If marriage is real before law, law should recognize but not define it. Divorce doesn't just end a feeling, it breaks a covenant. And wow, there's a whole argument about how societies drift when they treat these things as just preferences or contracts. Instead, these arguments invite each of us to reflect, examine our assumptions, and question what's obvious. Maybe you're someone who sees marriage as about love, or maybe you've been through a messy divorce. Papers like this can help you see the underlying ideas society has handed us, whether we notice or not. The paper by S.C. Sayles pushes us to think before we label marriage as just legal or just emotional. What we do with our bodies and our promises, it argues, matters, even before any legal system gets involved.